Hey Lucy group, so we're back for another small group lesson this week. So we're going to do kind of the same setup that we did last week, and we're going to do another analogy chart. If you remember, that's where we make like a T chart, and we'll talk about two different vowel teams or hunks and chunks and the sounds that they make. And then after we do that, we'll read our book together, and then you'll go back to Seesaw. And today we're going to work on what would you do if you could change the ending to our story. So you kind of get to be creative today. All right, let's get started. Okay, so just like we did last week, you're going to find a piece of paper. It could be a dry erase board, whatever you want to use to work on, and you're gonna, just like the picture shows, you're gonna draw a T chart, and you're gonna write the word blue on one side, and go ahead and underline that hunk and chunk that we're gonna be working with, that UE. And then you're gonna write the word way on the other side, and go ahead and underline that hunk and chunk, EIGH. And then when you're ready, go ahead and press the start button again, and we'll get started. Okay, so we are all ready for another analogy chart. So we're going to do just a few words on each side, and remember, we're going to say the word, and then I want you to think about what hunk and chunk or sound do you hear in that word. So let's take a look at the two hunks and chunks that we're going to work with today, okay? So this one, this UE, we've actually not done before. We've not talked about this one, but that UE makes the OO sound. So the same thing as like EW or OO. It makes that same sound, just like in our word blue. So UE says OO. And then our other hunk and chunk that we're gonna work with is that EIGH, and we have practiced that one because that's one of our hunks and chunks that we know. So if you remember, we go EIGHA, and it's our superhero of all the hunks and chunks. And you might have even wanted to do it a second time because we usually do it twice when we do our phonics dance. So we're gonna work with those two hunks and chunks. I'll tell you the word. You're gonna think about, you're gonna say it, and then you're gonna think about where do you think it's gonna go? Does it sound like U-E-oo? That it has that hunk and chunk in it, or does it sound like it has EIGH, that A hunk and chunk sound in it, okay? All right, so our first word is neigh, neigh, like what a horse would say. So our word is neigh. Everybody say neigh. So what do you think? Do you hear U-E-oo, or do you hear E-I-G-H-A? All right, so you should have said neigh, right? Or, well, that's the word. You should have said A, the hunk and chunk. So we're going to write neigh underneath where it says way, because they have that same hunk and chunk, that same ending sound, so they actually rhyme too. Now, not all of our words are going to rhyme that we're going to write down because they're not all going to end in that A sound. One of them, the word's actually going to be, or the A sound is going to be in the middle part of the word. But in this case, they both have that A sound at the end of the word, so they do rhyme. All right, so I hear N, I hear that N sound, and then after that, I hear A, N, A, and I know my hunk and chunk is E-I-G-H. And then once you write that, go ahead and underline the hunk and chunk. That way it's just really quick and easy for us to be able to see that, okay? All right, our next word is hue. Hue, which hue is like kind of like when you take a color and you make like different versions of that color. It's called a hue. You may have even talked about that with Miss Richardson in art. And if you haven't, I bet you will one day. But our new word is hue. Everybody say hue. All right, so think about it. Does it have that U-E-oo sound in it, or does it have that E-I-G-H-A sound in it? All right, so hopefully you said the U-E-oo sound, like hue. So we're gonna, oh, my marker's right here. So we're gonna write that under where it says blue. So if I stretch it out, I hear that H sound at the beginning, and then I hear that hunk and chunk, ooh. So hue. That one kind of makes that E sound at the beginning too. All right, so let's do a new word. Our next word is clue. Clue. So think about it. Do you hear U-E-oo, or do you hear E-I-G-H-A? Clue. Everybody say clue. All right, so think about it. Where do you think it goes? All right, hopefully you said that U-E-oo sound. So we're gonna put it right underneath our word blue. So I'm gonna stretch it out. Let's see. Ooh, I hear a blend at the beginning of that word. I hear the that C-L blend. And then I hear my hunk and chunk. Clue. Very good. So once you write the word clue, make sure that you underline that U-E hunk and chunk, okay? All right, let's go to a new word. Our new word is wait. Wait. So I'm not talking about like if I'm waiting on you to do something, I'm talking about a different kind of wait. We say it the same, but they're spelled totally differently. They're spelled differently, and it's a whole new meaning. So this meaning is like if I were to lift a weight, or like if I'm talking about measuring the weight of something, how much it weighs. That's what I'm talking about. So let's see. Everybody say weigh. I'm sorry, not weigh. Wait. I'm sorry. Wait. All right, so think about it. Do you hear, and this one's, I mean, look at our words. It's very, very, very similar to one of our words that we already have up there. So think about it. Wait. So hopefully you said that E-I-G-H hunk and chunk, that you said that is where it goes. So if I'm stretching it out, it actually is very similar. It's just like this. We just need to put another letter on the end. So what letter do you think is going to go on the end to make it from weigh to wait? Good, the T. Now, here's where I'm going to be really careful. I'm not going to underline the T because it's not part of our hunk and chunk. I'm just going to still underline the E-I-G-H. So don't underline the T, just underline that hunk and chunk, E-I-G-H. All right, so our next word is 80. 80. So like my grandfather is 80. So everybody say 80. All right, so now think about it. Where do you think it's going to go? Do you think it has that U-E-oo hunk and chunk, or does it have that E-I-G-H hunk and chunk? What do you think? All right, hopefully you said E-I-G-H because we heard that actually at the beginning of this word. So we're going to put it in this column right under our way. So we have, I know it starts with that A sound, so I'm going to start with our hunk and chunk, E-I-G-H. And then now I hear I hear that T sound, eight. Whoop, there's the word eight, but I'm not saying eight, I'm saying 8E. So there's a letter that sometimes can make that I or that E sound, the long and strong I or E sound. What letter am I talking about? Y, good. So in this case, it's actually going to make that E sound, A-T. Now again, I'm not going to underline the T and the Y. I'm just going to underline my hunk and chunk. That way it's really quick and easy for me to see that when I look at that word. All right, so make sure you get that written down and underline that hunk and chunk, and we'll do one more word. All right, our last word is true. True. Everybody say true. All right, so where do you think it goes? Do you think it makes that U-E-oo sound or E-I-G-H-A sound? You're right, it makes that U-E-oo sound. So we're gonna write it on this side. But I want you to be careful because the beginning of that word is a little tricky. It sounds like you're saying CH. When I say the word true, it does sound like I'm saying that CH sound, but it's not CH, it's a blend. It's actually the tr. Like if we really stretched it out and said it correctly, I would say it like this. I would say true, not true. That's how we say it, just because we kind of have an accent a little bit because we live in Kentucky and that's just the way we talk. And other people might talk that way too in other parts of the country. But if you really stretched it out, you would actually stretch it out and say true. So it's actually that T-R blend, true. And then we hear that hunk and chunk that we have that oo sound. So go ahead and write that word down and underline that UE so we can quickly see that hunk and chunk. And then let's go back over really quickly what sounds our two hunks and chunks make that we worked with today. So UE says ooh, very good. And EIGH says what? A. So just remember that superhero of all the hunks and chunks, okay? Excellent job doing your analogy chart. We might do another one of these next week and we might go back to making words. We will wait and see. Good job. Okay, so this week we're going to read a book called Pig Food. And in this story, Pig decides that he wants to make dinner for his friends, Sheep and Cow. And so we're going to see what he ends up making because I think that it ends up being maybe a little different than Cow and Sheep think that it's going to turn out. And what you're going to do at the end, after we read the story and we talk about parts of it, is you're going to go back to Seesaw and you're going to actually get to change the ending and tell me how you would make the story different at the end. All right, so let's get started with our book. Okay, so something that we have worked a whole lot on in first grade is making sure that when we read, what we read not only makes sense, but that it looks right too, that what we're saying matches what the words look like on the page. So I'm going to give you a really good example of what I want you all to make sure that you're paying attention to when you're reading. So I'm going to give you an example of where maybe I don't say the right things, but I want you to try to figure out, does it make sense and does it look right? So if you look on page 3, I'm going to read that first sentence and I want you to be thinking, does it make sense and does it look right? So you're going to double check me. Normally I do that with you, but this time you're going to check me and see, is what I'm reading, does it make sense? All right, so here we go. I am going to make a dinner tonight for you, says Pig. So what do you think? Did it look right? Did it make sense? If we think about it, it makes sense to say, I am going to make a dinner tonight for you, says Pig. That makes sense if I were to say that to anybody. But does that match the words that are on the page? And it doesn't. Like even when I said the words says pig, well, if I look at that word, that's not the word says, that's the word said pig. So even though it makes sense to say says pig, that doesn't match what the word looks like. So I always want to make sure that I slow down enough. I want you to work on fluency, but I don't want your fluency to be the main thing. I want that to be like a second thing that you work on. The first thing I want you to work on is to make sure that what you're reading makes sense and that it looks right. And then once you figure out the words and it does make sense and it does look right, then go back and work on your fluency part, okay? So I really want you to make sure that what you're reading looks right. So make sure that what you're saying and reading matches what the text looks like. So keep working on that as we read the rest of the book. All right, so something that we want to do as strong readers is to ask questions. Strong readers ask questions before they read, while they're reading, and even like after they're reading. So, my question, to give you an example on this page, is why is Pig putting all of these ingredients in the same pot? Like, what is he trying to make and what is he doing? So, you might have the same question as me, but pause the video and stop and think, or tell somebody that's sitting close to you, what kind of questions do you have so far after reading the first few pages of our book? Okay, so in this page, I actually want you to do two things. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to look at the picture and look at cow, look at pig, and look at sheep. And we can definitely infer or make a really good guess by just looking at their faces of how they feel about what pig has made. And I don't know about you, but I think cow and sheep feel a little bit differently than pig. So I want you to pause the video and turn and tell somebody, or just stop and think, what can you infer about how all three of those characters feel about what they're about to eat? So go ahead and do that now. All right. So the second thing that I want you to do is, remember, we always want to read with really good fluency and expression. Now remember, that should come second. The first thing I want you to do is make sure that you're reading the words correctly and that it makes sense and that it looks right. But we do want to make sure that we're reading with good fluency and with expression. So a lot of times in a book, we'll see a bold print word. And we know that that means that we want to put a little bit more emphasis or say that word a little bit differently than the rest of the words. Sometimes we say it like with a little bit more oomph and a little bit louder. But if you notice, we don't have any bold print words on this page, but we do have a word that looks different where the letters are actually kind of slanted. And so that's called italics. And when we see those kind of words in a fiction book, we still want to do the same thing that we would do for a bold print word. That means we want to put a little bit of emphasis on that word. So when I read that sentence at the bottom where you see that word and the word smell is slanted, listen to how I would read that, and then I want you to practice it. So I would say, but it does smell like pizza and cookies, said Sheep. Do you see how I put a little bit more? I said the word smell, I put a little bit more emphasis on that, and I said it a little differently. Listen again. But it does smell like pizza and cookies, said Sheep. So I want you to practice that. So pause the video and practice reading that sentence with expression. All right, so hopefully you had a chance to practice not only reading that with expression, that one sentence that we practiced, but also got a chance to infer. And then we'll finish up our book. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed our book, Pig Food. And now you get to be creative. So you're actually going to head back to Seesaw and you're going to tell me, how would you change the ending to the story if you were the author? So maybe you wouldn't even have Pig have food. Maybe he's eaten it all. Maybe you wouldn't even have Cow and Sheep go over to Pig's house. Maybe you would keep it very similar, but you would have Pig put different food in his soup. So you get to decide, how would you change the ending to the story? You get to be a little creative today. And I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. You all did an awesome job. Thanks for reading with me, and we'll do it again next week.